Admiral Sarah Chen stared at the holographic display floating above her command deck, her weathered hands gripping the steel railing until her knuckles turned white. The readings made no sense. After 30 years of deep space exploration and first contact protocols, she thought she had seen everything the universe could throw at humanity. She was wrong. "Run the scans again, Lieutenant Morrison," she ordered, her voice steady despite the chaos erupting in her mind. "Triple-check the sensor arrays." Morrison's fingers danced across his console, sweat beading on his forehead. "Admiral, I've run diagnostics 7 times. The readings are consistent. These entities, they're emitting energy signatures that match no known technology or biological process in our databases." The bridge of the UES Prometheus fell silent except for the gentle hum of life support systems. Through the massive viewport, what appeared to be a fleet of impossibly beautiful vessels hung in the void like jewels scattered across black velvet. Each ship seemed to be carved from pure light, their surfaces shifting between gold, silver, and colors that had no names in human language. Wings of energy stretched from their hulls, beating slowly as if swimming through the cosmic medium itself. "How many?" Chen asked, though she dreaded the answer. "Initial count shows 47 vessels, Admiral." "But..." Morrison paused, his voice cracking slightly. "Ma'am, our sensors are detecting something else. These ships aren't just advanced technology. They're showing quantum signatures that suggest they exist partially outside our dimensional space." Dr. Elena Vasquez, the expedition's xenobiologist and theoretical physicist, stepped forward from her station. Her dark eyes were wide with a mixture of terror and wonder. "Admiral, if these readings are accurate, we're looking at beings that operate on principles we barely understand. Their ships exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. That's not just advanced technology, that's reality manipulation on a scale that makes our greatest achievements look like stone tools." Chen nodded grimly. Humanity had come so far in the past century. After the Unity Wars of 2089, the species had finally learned to work together, pooling their resources and knowledge to reach for the stars. The development of the quantum fold drive had opened the galaxy to human exploration, and, in 50 years of expansion, they had encountered dozens of alien species. Some had been hostile, requiring the full might of the human defense fleet to subdue. Others had been peaceful, leading to profitable trade agreements and cultural exchanges. But none had been like this. "Any response to our hails?" she asked Communications Officer Park. "Negative, Admiral. We've transmitted on every frequency, used every first contact protocol in the book. They're not responding, but..." Park hesitated. "Ma'am, there's something else. We're picking up transmissions between their vessels, but they're not using electromagnetic radiation. The signals appear to be transmitted through quantum entanglement networks. Instantaneous communication across their entire fleet." The implications hit Chen like a physical blow. Instantaneous communication meant these beings had mastered quantum entanglement on a massive scale. Humanity's best scientists had only recently figured out how to maintain quantum entanglement over distances of a few light-years, and, even then, the technology was experimental and unreliable. These entities were using it as casually as humans used radio. "Admiral," Dr. Vasquez said quietly, "I'm reading energy buildup across their fleet. Whatever they're planning, it's big." Chen's mind raced through possibilities. First contact scenarios, defense strategies, diplomatic overtures, everything she had trained for seemed inadequate in the face of beings who could manipulate reality itself. The weight of representing humanity in this moment pressed down on her shoulders like the gravity of a neutron star. "Sir," Morrison said, his voice barely above a whisper. "You need to see this." On the main display, one of the alien vessels had begun to change. Its crystalline hull was shifting, unfolding like a flower blooming in fast forward. Wings of pure energy extended outward, each one larger than the Prometheus itself. The ship's form was becoming increasingly recognizable, taking on characteristics that triggered something deep in human racial memory. "My God," Park breathed. "It looks like an angel," Dr. Vasquez finished. "It looks like an angel." Chen felt her worldview cracking like ice under pressure. The being, for it was clearly a being now, not just a ship, stretched its wings across the void. Its face, if it could be called a face, was a constantly shifting mandala of light and geometry that hurt to look at directly. Multiple sets of wings surrounded its form, each one crackling with energy that made the output of a fusion reactor look like a candle flame. "How is this possible?" Morrison asked, his voice shaking. "Angels aren't real. They're mythology, religion, ancient stories." Dr. Vasquez was frantically typing at her console, cross-referencing the visual data with historical and religious databases. "Admiral, the physical characteristics match descriptions from dozens of human cultures. Seraphim, cherubim, ophanim, the visual elements are consistent across belief systems that had no contact with each other." Chen's practical mind rebelled against the implications. She was a woman of science, trained to think in terms of physics and observable phenomena. Yet here she was, staring at beings that seemed to have stepped directly out of humanity's oldest stories. Either this was the most incredible coincidence in the history of the universe, or humanity's ancient myths held more truth than anyone had imagined. "Admiral," Park said urgently, "I'm detecting massive energy buildup across the entire fleet. Whatever they're doing, it's happening now." The lead being, the angel, Chen's mind supplied despite her resistance to the term, began to move. Its approach was not the mechanical thrust of conventional propulsion, but, rather a folding of space itself. Reality bent around the creature, bringing it closer without apparent movement. The effect was disorienting, like watching someone walk toward you through a funhouse mirror. "Shields up, all stop," Chen ordered. "But, do not power weapons. If these beings wanted us destroyed, they could have done it already." The angel stopped perhaps a kilometer from the Prometheus, its form so massive and radiant that the ship's hull plating began to warm from the ambient energy it radiated. Chen could feel her crew's fear like a tangible presence on the bridge, but she forced herself to remain calm. Everything depended on the next few moments. Then, it spoke. The voice came from everywhere and nowhere, bypassing their communications array entirely and resonating directly in their minds. It was not words in any human language, but rather pure meaning transmitted directly to their consciousness. The experience was overwhelming, like trying to drink from a fire hose while standing in a hurricane. "Children of the third sphere. We have watched your ascension with great interest." Chen felt her legs weaken but managed to remain standing. Around her, she could see her crew struggling with the same overwhelming presence. Dr. Vasquez had fallen to one knee, clutching her head as tears streamed down her face. Morrison was gripping his console so tightly that his fingers had gone numb. We are representatives of humanity," Chen managed to say aloud, hoping the being could understand her. "We come in peace, seeking knowledge and understanding." The angel's response came with what might have been amusement, though the emotion was alien and vast beyond human comprehension. "Peace. Yes. We know your kind, Sarah Chen of the humans. We have known you since your species first looked to the stars and wondered what lay beyond their reach." The fact that it knew her name sent ice through Chen's veins. More disturbing was the implication that these beings had been watching humanity for far longer than anyone had suspected. How long? And why had they chosen now to reveal themselves? "Why?" she asked simply. "Why now? Why reveal yourselves to us?" The answer came with images flooding directly into her mind. She saw the birth of stars, the death of galaxies, cosmic forces that spanned billions of years and countless civilizations. She saw the rise and fall of species across the universe, each one reaching for transcendence only to fall short of some cosmic standard. The time of testing approaches. The ancient enemy stirs once more. You have been chosen to stand with US in the final conflict. Chen's mind reeled. Final conflict? Ancient enemy? The concepts were too vast, too apocalyptic for her military training to process. She was prepared for territorial disputes, resource conflicts, even full-scale interstellar war. But, this sounded like something beyond the scope of conventional warfare. I don't understand, she said. Chosen for what? What enemy? More images flooded her consciousness. She saw the void between galaxies come alive with something that was the antithesis of creation itself. Beings of pure entropy and destruction, entities that sought to unmake reality itself. The cosmic horror of it nearly shattered her sanity, but the angel's presence somehow shielded her mind from complete dissolution. The devourers wake. They who seek to return all existence to the primordial void. The Great War begins anew. Dr. Vasquez struggled to her feet, her scientific mind somehow still functioning despite the overwhelming input. Admiral, she gasped, the energy readings, they're not just ships or beings. They're reality anchors. They maintain the structure of spacetime itself. The revelation hit Chen like a thunderbolt. These angels weren't just advanced aliens, they were cosmic forces of stability and order, maintaining the very fabric of existence against something that sought to unravel it all. And, somehow, impossibly, humanity had been chosen to join this conflict. Why us? Chen asked. We're barely out of our own solar system. Our technology is primitive compared to yours. What could we possibly offer in a conflict of this scale? The angel's response came with something that felt like ancient wisdom mixed with desperate hope. Your species possesses something unique, something that has not been seen since the First War. You have the gift of unpredictability. Where other species follow predetermined patterns, humans create new possibilities. Where others accept limitations, you transcend them. In chaos, you find opportunity. In impossibility, you find hope. Chen felt the weight of cosmic expectation settle on her shoulders. Humanity, the scrappy upstart species that had barely managed to unite their own planet, was being asked to join a war that would determine the fate of existence itself. The absurdity of it might have made her laugh if the situation weren't so terrifyingly serious. What do you need from us? She asked, her voice steadier than she felt. First, understanding. Then, preparation. Your species must be awakened to their true potential. The old myths must be remembered. The ancient pacts must be renewed. The angel began to change again, its form becoming more comprehensible to human perception. The blinding radiance dimmed to a level that didn't cause physical pain to observe directly. When it spoke again, its voice was gentler, though no less powerful. Sarah Chen of the humans, you have been chosen as herald. Return to your people. Tell them that the age of innocence is ending. Tell them that they are not alone, and never have been. Tell them that the guardians of creation call upon them to fulfill their destiny. Images flooded Chen's mind again, but these were different, detailed technical specifications, star charts showing the location of ancient artifacts, and, most importantly, the location where the first human volunteers would be trained in the arts of cosmic warfare. The knowledge burned itself into her memory with perfect clarity, impossible to forget or distort. There will be those who won't believe, Chen said. Our governments, our scientists, our people, they'll think this is some kind of hoax or delusion. Then, show them. The angel extended one wing toward the Prometheus, and Chen felt a fundamental change occur in the ship's quantum structure. She could sense, without understanding how, that their vessel had been transformed into something far beyond its original specifications. The hull now existed partially in higher dimensions, the engines had been upgraded to tap directly into the quantum foam, and the computer systems had been enhanced with processing capabilities that bordered on the supernatural. Your ship will serve as proof, the angel said, its voice now somehow speaking directly through the ship's communication systems. return to Earth. Gather the faithful, the brave, and the brilliant. The first academy must be established within one solar cycle. Training must begin before the Devourers complete their awakening. Chen nodded, though she felt like a child being asked to perform surgery. What about you? Where will you be? We prepare the ancient weapons. We strengthen the barriers between dimensions. We wake our sleeping kindred across the galaxy. When your people are ready, we will return. The angel began to withdraw, its form becoming more ethereal as it rejoined its fleet. One by one, the other angelic beings began to fade from visible space, their ships shifting into dimensional frequencies that human sensors could no longer detect. Wait, Chen called out. How do we contact you? How do we know when we're ready? The angel's final response echoed in her mind with the weight of prophecy. When your species learns to sing the songs of creation itself, we will hear. When the first human ascends to command the light between stars, we will know. When the herald becomes the commander, the real war will begin. Then, they were gone, leaving only empty space and the echoing memory of power beyond imagination. Chen stood on the bridge of her transformed ship, staring out at the stars that suddenly seemed far less empty than they had an hour ago. Somewhere in the void, ancient enemies were stirring. Somewhere else, humanity's destiny waited to unfold. She turned to her crew, seeing her own mixture of terror and wonder reflected in their faces. They were no longer just explorers venturing into the unknown. They had become the first human witnesses to a cosmic truth that would reshape everything their species believed about the universe and their place in it. Set course for Earth, she ordered, her voice carrying new authority. Maximum fold speed. And begin composing our report. This is going to be a very interesting conversation with command. As the Prometheus engaged its newly enhanced engines and reality folded around them, Chen couldn't shake the feeling that she had just committed humanity to something far greater and more dangerous than any species had ever attempted. But, as she watched the stars blur past at impossible speeds, she also felt something else, pride. Whatever the universe was about to throw at them, humanity would meet it with the same stubborn refusal to accept defeat that had carried them from cave paintings to starships in the span of 10,000 years. The age of innocence was ending, but the age of legend was about to begin. The emergency session of the Global Unity Council convened in Geneva exactly 72 hours after Admiral Chen's return to Earth. Representatives from every nation sat in stunned silence as holographic displays showed footage from the Prometheus's encounter with what the media had already dubbed the Angels. Dr. Elena Vasquez stood at the central podium, methodically presenting sensor data that defied every known law of physics while maintaining the calm demeanor of someone who had accepted that reality was far stranger than anyone had imagined. The energy output of a single entity exceeded the total power generation capacity of our entire civilization by a factor of approximately 50,000, Vasquez explained, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what she was describing. Their ships exist in at least 7 dimensions simultaneously, and their communication technology operates through quantum entanglement networks that span galactic distances. Secretary General Maria Santos leaned forward, her weathered face reflecting the weight of representing 8 billion human beings in a universe that had suddenly become infinitely more complex. Dr. Vasquez, I need you to be absolutely clear about this. Are you telling us that beings matching descriptions from our religious texts are real, and they've recruited humanity for some kind of cosmic war? Before Vasquez could respond, Admiral Chen stepped forward. In the 3 days since her return, she had aged what looked like years. The knowledge burning in her mind, the weight of humanity's destiny pressing on her shoulders, had transformed her from a confident military officer into something approaching a prophet, though she would have rejected that description violently. Secretary General, what I'm telling you is that we've been living in ignorance of our true place in the universe. These beings, call them angels, call them cosmic entities, it doesn't matter, have been watching over not just humanity, but reality itself. And now something is coming that threatens to destroy everything that exists. The Chinese representative, Dr. Lu Wei, stood slowly. His expression was skeptical, though traces of wonder flickered in his eyes. Admiral Chen, even accepting your report at face value, you're asking us to believe that our species, barely a century past global warfare, still struggling with basic interplanetary colonization, has been chosen to participate in a conflict that spans dimensions. The scale is absurd. Chen had expected this reaction. In the past 3 days, she had briefed the President of the Americas Federation, the European Council, the African Union, and the Asian Cooperative. The response had been universally the same: disbelief, followed by wonder, followed by terror as the implications sank in. But disbelief wasn't an option when the Prometheus itself served as undeniable proof. "Dr. Lu, I invite you to tour our ship," Chen replied. "Our quantum drives are now operating at efficiency levels that our best engineers thought were impossible. Our hull material has been restructured at the molecular level. Our computer systems are processing information through quantum matrices that didn't exist a week ago. This isn't theoretical anymore." The Brazilian representative, Colonel Silva, cleared his throat. "Admiral, assuming we accept your account, what exactly are these beings asking of us? You mentioned an academy, training programs. What kind of timeline are we looking at?" Chen activated the holographic projector, displaying star charts that had been burned into her memory during the Angel's contact. "They want us to establish the first academy of celestial warfare within 9 months. The initial class will consist of 1,000 candidates drawn from across all human populations. These individuals will undergo training in what they called the arts of cosmic warfare." "And what exactly does that mean?" asked the representative from the African Union, Dr. Amara Okafor. "I don't know," Chen admitted. "But I do know that whatever they plan to teach us, it's necessary for our survival. The entity I spoke with showed me glimpses of what's coming. There are forces in the universe that exist solely to unmake creation itself. They're not conquerors looking for territory or resources, they want to return everything to the void from which it came." Dr. Vasquez activated her own display, showing quantum signature analyses that had kept her awake for the past 3 days. "I've been analyzing the data from our encounter, and there's something else you need to understand. These angels aren't just advanced aliens. They're fundamental forces that maintain the structure of spacetime. Without them, reality as we know it would collapse into quantum chaos." The implications hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Secretary General Santos rubbed her temples, feeling the onset of a headache that seemed to encompass the entire weight of human civilization. "Dr. Vasquez, you're telling us that we're dependent on these beings for the basic stability of existence?" "Yes, ma'am. And, apparently, that stability is under threat." The Russian representative, General Volkov, stood abruptly. His military bearing was evident in every line of his posture, but his face showed the strain of trying to process concepts that challenged everything he had believed about warfare and strategy. "This is insanity. We're talking about selecting 1,000 people to train for a type of combat that we don't understand, against enemies we've never seen, using methods that violate everything we know about physics." "General Volkov," Chen replied, her voice carrying new authority, 3 days ago, I would have agreed with you completely. But, I've seen what's out there. I've felt the presence of beings who casually manipulate the fundamental forces of the universe. And, I've been given knowledge that makes it clear our choice isn't whether to participate in this conflict, it's whether we prepare for it or face it unprepared." The room erupted in dozens of simultaneous conversations as representatives struggled to process the magnitude of what they were being asked to accept. Santos called for order, but it took several minutes before the chaos subsided enough for productive discussion to resume. Dr. James McCready, representing the Scientific Council, stood slowly. His white hair and deeply lined face spoke of decades spent pushing the boundaries of human knowledge, but even his extensive experience seemed inadequate for the current situation. "Admiral Chen, Dr. Vasquez, I need to ask the question that I think everyone is thinking but no one wants to voice. How do we know these beings are telling the truth? How do we know they're not the enemies they claim to be protecting us from? It was a fair question, and Chen had wrestled with it during every sleepless hour since her return. Dr. McCready, I understand the skepticism. But, consider this, if these beings wanted to harm us, they could have done it at any time. The power differential is so vast that deception would be unnecessary. They could have simply taken what they wanted or destroyed us entirely. Furthermore, Vasquez added, the modifications they made to our ship are clearly beneficial. Our defensive capabilities have been enhanced by several orders of magnitude, our life support systems are now virtually foolproof, and our navigation systems can plot courses through dimensional space that we didn't even know existed. These aren't the actions of an enemy. Colonel Silva leaned back in his chair, his expression thoughtful. Assuming we move forward with this academy concept, how do we select candidates? What criteria do we use to choose people for training that we don't understand? Chen activated another display, this one showing psychological and physiological profiles that had somehow been included in the information downloaded to her mind. According to the specifications I received, candidates need to meet several criteria. High adaptability quotient, strong pattern recognition abilities, emotional stability under extreme stress, and something they called quantum consciousness compatibility. What does that mean? Dr. Okafor asked. Near as we can tell, Vasquez replied, it refers to individuals whose neural patterns show unusual quantum coherence effects. People who naturally think in ways that align with quantum mechanical principles rather than classical physics. General Volkov snorted. So we're looking for people who think like the universe is insane? More like people who can accept that the universe operates on principles that seem insane from our limited perspective, Chen corrected. Artists, theoretical physicists, certain types of engineers, individuals with strong intuitive capabilities, the psychological profiles are quite specific. Secretary-General Santos called for a 10-minute recess, during which the chamber buzzed with intense conversations in a dozen languages. When the session resumed, her expression had hardened into the look of someone who had made a decision that would haunt her for the rest of her life. Ladies and gentlemen, I've been in communication with my security advisors during the break. The reality is that we don't have the luxury of extended debate on this issue. If Admiral Chen's report is accurate, and the evidence suggests it is, then, we're facing an existential threat that requires immediate action. She paused, looking around the chamber at faces that reflected her own mixture of determination and terror. I'm proposing that we authorize the establishment of the Academy of Celestial Warfare under joint international supervision. Candidate selection will begin immediately, drawing from all member nations according to population ratios and specialized skill requirements. The Chinese representative stood. Secretary General, you're asking us to commit resources and personnel to a program that operates outside any framework we understand. The political implications alone, Dr. Liu, Santos interrupted, the political implications of ignoring this threat are the potential extinction of our species. I think that outweighs concerns about administrative frameworks. Admiral Chen stepped forward again. There's something else you need to know. The Academy won't be built on Earth. The chamber fell silent. The location specified in my briefing is a system 47 light-years from here. There's a planet there that's been prepared for our use. The angels called it neutral ground between dimensions. Our candidates will be training in a place where the normal laws of physics are more flexible. Dr. McCready leaned forward. Admiral, you're talking about sending 1,000 of our best people to another star system for training in hypothetical combat techniques. The logistics alone have been arranged, Chen interrupted. Part of the ship modifications include enhanced fold drive capabilities. We can make the journey in 3 weeks instead of the 50 years it would normally take. And we won't be going alone. She activated one final display, showing images that had been burned into her memory during the Angel's transmission. Representatives from 17 other species will be training alongside us. Humanity isn't the only race that's been called to this conflict. We're part of a coalition that spans multiple galaxies. The revelation struck the chamber like a physical blow. Not only were they not alone in the universe, but dozens of other intelligent species faced the same terrible choice. The scope of what they were being asked to participate in was becoming clearer, and it was vast beyond human comprehension. General Volkov stood slowly, his expression grim but determined. If 17 other species are involved, then this threat is real. No hoax or deception would operate on such a scale. He paused, looking directly at Chen. Admiral, you have Russia's support for this academy program. But, I want to be clear, we're not just committing resources. We're committing to fundamentally changing what it means to be human. General, I think that change has already begun, Chen replied. The question is whether we guide it or let it happen to us. Over the next 6 hours, the Global Unity Council hammered out the framework for humanity's participation in the cosmic conflict. The Academy of Celestial Warfare would be established under joint international oversight, with Admiral Chen serving as the primary liaison to the Angelic forces. Dar. Vasquez would head the Scientific Analysis Division, working to understand the principles behind the modifications made to their technology. Candidate selection would begin immediately, using criteria provided by the angels but filtered through human psychological and medical assessment protocols. Each candidate would undergo extensive briefing about the true nature of the universe and humanity's place in it before being given the choice to participate. Most importantly, the entire program would remain classified at the highest levels until the first class of graduates returned to Earth. The psychological impact on human civilization of learning about the cosmic conflict would need to be carefully managed to prevent social collapse. As the session concluded, Secretary General Santos stood before the assembled representatives of humanity. Ladies and gentlemen, we've just committed our species to participating in something that exceeds our current understanding of reality itself. History will judge whether we've chosen wisely or led our people into disaster. Admiral Chen stepped forward one final time. Secretary General, there's one more thing the angel told me. It said that when the first human learns to sing the songs of creation itself, they'll know we're ready for the real war. And, what does that mean? Chen's expression was haunted by knowledge she could barely comprehend. I think it means that some of our people are going to become something more than human. And, I think that's exactly what we need them to become. 3 months later, the first transport ships departed for the Academy world. Their cargo holds contained 1,000 of humanity's finest minds and strongest spirits, individuals who had volunteered to be transformed into something unprecedented in human history. They carried with them the hopes, fears, and desperate courage of an entire species stepping into a larger universe. Behind them, Earth continued its rotation around an ordinary star, its people unaware that the age of cosmic innocence had ended and that humanity's children were learning to wage war among the angels themselves. The Academy of Celestial Warfare existed in a place where the normal rules of reality bent like light through crystal. The planet had no name that human tongues could pronounce, existing in a star system that occupied multiple dimensional frequencies simultaneously. When the first human transport ships arrived, the candidates found themselves stepping onto a world that challenged every assumption they had ever made about physics, consciousness, and the nature of existence itself. Lieutenant Commander Marcus Webb, formerly of the European Space Defense Corps, stood on the crystalline platform that served as the Academy's central training ground. 6 months into his education in cosmic warfare, he had learned to accept impossibilities as daily routine. The platform floated 300 meters above a landscape that shifted between mathematical equations made manifest and forests of living light. Above them, 3 suns traced geometric patterns across a sky that showed star maps from 17 different galaxies simultaneously. Focus your consciousness through the quantum matrix, instructed Seraph Oriel, the Angelic being assigned as humanity's primary combat instructor. Oriel's form had been modified to be less overwhelming to human perception, but, even in this diminished state, looking directly at the entity caused Webb's enhanced neural implants to strain against overload. Do not think in terms of your old physics. Here, intention shapes reality. Webb closed his eyes and reached for the state of consciousness that the angels called dimensional awareness. It had taken him 4 months to achieve even basic proficiency, and he still struggled with the concept that thought itself could manipulate matter and energy. Around him, his fellow human trainees were engaged in similar exercises, their enhanced bodies glowing with barely contained quantum energy. The humans training alongside him represented the pinnacle of their species. Dr. Sarah Kim, a theoretical physicist from Seoul, was learning to calculate probability matrices in her head that could predict quantum events across multiple timelines. Captain James Okoye, a former Nigerian Special Forces operator, had discovered an intuitive understanding of dimensional geography that let him navigate spaces that existed in folded spacetime. Commander Lisa Petrov, a Russian engineer, could now repair technology that operated on principles she couldn't explain but somehow comprehended at a fundamental level. But it was Webb himself who had become the source of fascination for both human and angelic instructors. His adaptation to the Academy's reality-bending environment had exceeded all projections. Where other humans struggled for months to achieve basic quantum consciousness integration, Webb had accomplished it in weeks. More disturbing, he had begun to demonstrate abilities that the angels hadn't taught him, capabilities that seemed to emerge from some previously unknown aspect of human potential. Very good, Oriel observed as Webb successfully phased his consciousness through 7-dimensional layers simultaneously. Your progress continues to exceed parameters. Perhaps it is time for the next stage of your education. The angel led Webb away from the main training ground toward a section of the academy that existed partially outside normal spacetime. As they walked, or performed the motion that approximated walking in this place, Oriel's form became more complex, revealing aspects of its true nature that Webb's enhanced perceptions could now process without his mind dissolving into screaming chaos. Marcus Webb of the humans, Oriel said, its voice resonating directly in Webb's consciousness, you have learned to manipulate quantum foam, to navigate dimensional space, and to channel energies that your species did not know existed 6 months ago. But these are merely tools. Now you must understand their purpose. They entered a chamber that existed as pure geometric space, where concepts took physical form and mathematics had texture and weight. In the center of the room hung a sphere of absolute darkness that seemed to devour light, sound, and even the possibility of existence itself. What is it? Webb asked, though part of him already knew and recoiled from the knowledge. A fragment of the enemy, Oriel replied. A piece of the devourers that we captured during the last great conflict, 13 billion years ago. We maintain it here as a teaching aid, contained within 17 layers of reality anchors. Webb approached the sphere cautiously, his enhanced senses screaming warnings at every step. As he drew nearer, he began to understand what he was seeing. The darkness wasn't merely the absence of light, it was the absence of existence itself, a piece of the primordial void that existed before the first moment of creation. It radiated entropy in ways that made his quantum-enhanced nervous system want to shut down in self-defense. The devourers are not beings in any sense that your language can express, Oriel explained. They are not alive, not intelligent in terms you would recognize, yet they possess purpose that exceeds the devotion of any living creature. They exist to return all of creation to the state of perfect emptiness from which it emerged. How do you fight something like that? Webb asked, his voice barely steady. With great difficulty and greater sacrifice, Oriel replied. In the First War, entire galaxies were consumed before we learned to contain them. Billions of species were lost, including some that had achieved states of existence that your mathematics cannot yet describe. We learned that conventional weapons are useless against entities that can unmake matter at the quantum level. Webb continued to study the captured fragment, his enhanced perception revealing layers of horror that challenged his sanity. The thing wasn't just destroying matter, it was editing it out of existence, erasing the very possibility that it had ever existed. The containment field around it wasn't just holding the fragment in place, it was continuously recreating the space around it to replace what the entity was unmaking. So how did you stop them? Through the development of weapons that operate on the same fundamental level as the enemy. Weapons that can rewrite reality itself, that can impose order upon chaos through pure will backed by cosmic force. Oriel's form shifted, revealing aspects that resembled weapons more than anatomy. But, such weapons require operators who can exist partially outside reality while simultaneously anchoring themselves to creation's foundation. Webb felt understanding dawn like a cold sunrise. You're talking about turning people into something that's part angel. Not angel. Something new. Something that has never existed before in all the history of creation. Oriel moved closer, its presence making Webb's enhanced nervous system sing with harmonics that bordered on painful. Your species possesses unique properties, Marcus Webb. Where other races follow predictable patterns, humans demonstrate chaotic creativity. Where others seek stability, you thrive in uncertainty. These qualities make you ideal candidates for synthesis. Synthesis with what? Instead of answering directly, Oriel led Webb to another section of the chamber where a second sphere hung in containment. This one radiated power that made the angelic presence feel weak by comparison. It pulsed with energy that seemed to contain entire universes' worth of creative potential. A fragment of the source, Oriel explained. The primordial force from which all creation emerges. It is the antithesis of what the devourers represent, pure creative potential, the power to impose order upon chaos, to create something from nothing. Webb approached this second sphere with the same caution he had shown the first, but the effect was completely different. Instead of draining his life force, the source fragment seemed to resonate with something deep in his quantum-enhanced consciousness. He could feel possibilities unfolding around him, potential realities branching out like an infinite tree of what could be. You want to merge us with that, he said, and it wasn't a question. Not merge. Synthesize. Create something that has never existed before, beings who can channel the source's creative power while maintaining the chaotic adaptability that makes humanity unique. Oriel's voice carried tones of anticipation and fear in equal measure. The process has never been attempted. The risks are significant. Define significant. Complete dissolution of consciousness. Transformation into a force of pure creation without individual identity. Physical restructuring at the quantum level that may not leave anything recognizably human. Oriel paused. Or success, and the creation of beings capable of standing as equals with the celestial host in the final battle for existence. Webb stared at the source fragment, feeling its call like a song in frequencies his unenhanced ears could never have perceived. Around him, the chamber responded to his presence, mathematical equations rewriting themselves in real time as his consciousness interfaced with the Academy's reality manipulation systems. How many others are being offered this opportunity? He asked. None. You are the first human to demonstrate the necessary compatibility. Your consciousness has achieved a state of quantum coherence that approaches the level needed for synthesis. If you succeed, others may follow. If you fail. Oriel didn't finish the sentence. Webb understood the implications. He wasn't just volunteering for a dangerous procedure, he was volunteering to be the test case for something that would determine whether humanity could truly participate in the cosmic conflict or would remain helpless spectators to their own extinction. What would I become? He asked. We do not know. The synthesis between human consciousness and source energy has never been achieved. Theoretical models suggest possibilities ranging from ascension to a state of pure creative force to the development of reality manipulation capabilities that exceed even our own. Oriel's form shifted, revealing what might have been concern. What we do know is that you would no longer be human in any conventional sense. Webb thought of Earth, of the 8 billion people who had no idea their existence hung in the balance of a cosmic conflict they couldn't imagine. He thought of his fellow trainees, pushing themselves beyond every limit in preparation for a war that would determine whether reality itself would continue to exist. Most of all, he thought of Admiral Chen's words during their final briefing before departure: "We're not going out there just to learn new tactics. We're going to become whatever humanity needs to be to survive. If I agree to this, what's the process? You would be placed in quantum suspension within a synthesis chamber calibrated to your specific consciousness patterns. The source fragment would be introduced gradually, allowing your enhanced nervous system to adapt to energies that normally require angelic physiology to channel. The process would take approximately 100 of your days. And, if I don't survive? Your consciousness would join the source, becoming part of the creative force that maintains reality. Your individual identity would be lost, but your essence would contribute to the stability of existence itself." Oriel's voice carried what might have been respect. "It is not death, but it is not life as you understand it." Webb nodded slowly, his decision crystallizing with the certainty that had always marked his most important choices. "When do we start? Are you certain? This is not a choice that can be undone. Once the synthesis begins, there is no return to your previous state of existence." "I'm certain." Webb looked around the chamber one final time, memorizing details that his enhanced perception captured with perfect clarity. "But, I want to send a message to Admiral Chen first. If this works, she needs to know what's possible. If it doesn't, she will be informed of your sacrifice," Oriel assured him. "And your choice will be remembered by beings whose memory spans cosmic ages." 3 days later, Marcus Webb entered the synthesis chamber, a crystalline construct that existed in 17 dimensions simultaneously. As the process began and source energy started flowing into his quantum-enhanced consciousness, his last coherent thought was a prayer to whatever force had guided humanity from the caves to the stars: "Let this work. Let us be worthy of what we're becoming." The chamber sealed, and the most ambitious experiment in the history of creation began. In labs throughout the Academy, Angelic and human scientists monitored quantum fluctuations that registered on instruments designed to measure reality itself. Above them, the 3 suns traced patterns that would determine whether humanity's participation in the cosmic war would be as foot soldiers or as generals in the army of light. 100 days later, something that had once been Marcus Webb would emerge from the chamber, and the balance of power in the universe would shift forever. But, first, the real war would begin, and humanity would learn what it truly meant to fight for the preservation of existence itself. In the depths of intergalactic space, ancient enemies stirred, sensing that the patterns of creation were changing once again. The Devourers began to gather, preparing for the final conflict that would determine whether the universe would continue its chaotic expansion toward infinite possibility, or return to the perfect emptiness from which it had first emerged billions of years ago. The age of cosmic innocence was truly over. The age of transcendence was about to begin. 100 days after Marcus Webb entered the synthesis chamber, reality itself held its breath. Across 17 galaxies, the celestial host maintained vigil as quantum sensors registered fluctuations that defied measurement. The Academy of Celestial Warfare had been evacuated except for essential monitoring staff, their consciousness shielded behind layers of dimensional barriers as the experiment that would determine humanity's fate reached its conclusion. Admiral Sarah Chen stood in the observatory chamber, her own enhanced consciousness now capable of perceiving the cosmic forces at work around her. 6 months of training alongside humanity's greatest minds had transformed her from a military officer into something approaching a cosmic architect. But, even her expanded awareness could barely comprehend the magnitude of what was happening in the chamber below. "Quantum coherence is stabilizing," reported Dr. Vasquez, her voice tight with anticipation and terror. The physicist had undergone her own transformation during their time at the Academy. Her understanding of reality expanded to encompass principles that human science had never imagined. Marcus's consciousness it's hard to describe. It's like watching a single note become a symphony. Through the transparent aluminum barriers that separated them from the synthesis chamber, they could see the crystalline construct pulsing with energies that made starlight look dim. Inside, what had once been Marcus Webb was undergoing a transformation that transcended every category of change that biology or physics could provide. His physical form had become something that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously, part matter, part energy, part pure mathematical concept given substance. Seraph Oriole materialized beside them, its own form showing signs of strain from maintaining proximity to the synthesis process. The integration is proceeding beyond our most optimistic projections. His consciousness is not merely accepting the source energy, it is learning to orchestrate it. What does that mean? Chen asked, though she suspected the answer would challenge her sanity even in its diminished state. It means he is becoming something that has never existed in all the cosmic cycles of creation and destruction. Not human, not angel, but a synthesis that may represent the next stage of conscious evolution. Oriole's voice carried tones of awe and uncertainty. We do not know what he will become. As they watched, the energy patterns within the chamber began to shift. The chaotic flows of source energy that had surrounded Webb's transforming form suddenly organized themselves into patterns of breathtaking complexity. Mathematical equations that described the fundamental structure of reality arranged themselves in three-dimensional matrices around his emerging new body. "Dear God," Vasquez breathed. "He's rewriting the quantum foundations of the space around him." Those equations, they're not describing reality, they're creating it. The transformation accelerated. Light began to pour from the chamber as Webb's new form achieved something approaching stability. But the light wasn't electromagnetic radiation, it was the pure radiance of creative potential, the same force that had ignited the first stars and set the cosmos in motion toward infinite complexity. Then, the chamber went dark. For a moment that seemed to stretch across eons, silence filled the observatory. Even Oriole's massive presence seemed diminished, as if the universe itself was holding its breath to see what had emerged from humanity's first attempt at transcendence. The chamber began to open. What stepped out was recognizably Marcus Webb, but transformed beyond any previous category of existence. His form shifted between dimensions, sometimes appearing human, sometimes revealing geometries that suggested vast wings of pure energy. His eyes held depths that reflected the birth of galaxies, and, when he moved, reality rippled around him like water disturbed by an impossible stone. "Marcus?" Chen called softly. He turned toward her, and his smile was radiant with power that made the Academy's suns seem like candles. When he spoke, his voice harmonized with frequencies that resonated in the quantum foam itself. "Hello, Admiral. I'm still me, but I'm also something more now. Something that can see the patterns underlying creation itself." He gestured, and the air around his hand sparkled with newborn stars that lasted for a moment before fading back into potential. "I can feel them out there. The Devourers. They're moving." Oriole approached cautiously, its own massive presence somehow diminished next to Webb's transformed state. "What do you perceive?" "They're not just attacking random targets anymore. They have a strategy, a coordinated assault designed to unravel the foundational constants that hold reality together." Webb's expression darkened, and storm clouds gathered in the dimensional space around him. "They're targeting the original source points, the locations where creation first emerged from the primordial void." The implications struck everyone in the observatory simultaneously. If the Devourers could destroy the source points, they wouldn't need to consume creation piece by piece. They could cause existence itself to collapse back into the nothingness from which it had emerged. "How long do we have?" Chen asked. "Based on their current rate of advance." Webb paused, his consciousness spanning vast distances to observe events occurring across multiple galaxies simultaneously. 6 months, maybe less. They're moving faster than they have in any previous cycle. Dr. Vasquez stepped forward, her scientific mind still struggling to process what she was witnessing. "Marcus, what are you now? What did the synthesis make you?" Webb's smile was gentle, but behind it lay depths of power that made neutron stars seem fragile. I'm what humanity has always had the potential to become, Elena. I'm chaos given form, creativity backed by cosmic force, the ability to imagine new possibilities and make them real. He raised his hand, and complex equations appeared in the air around it. I'm a conductor for the symphony of creation itself. And what does that make you capable of? Let me show you. Webb gestured, and the observatory's walls became transparent, revealing the cosmos beyond in all its terrible beauty. But, instead of the normal view of stars and nebulae, they were seeing reality's underlying structure, the quantum threads that connected all things, the dimensional matrices that maintained the stability of space and time, the vast networks of energy that kept existence from collapsing into chaos. This is what the angels see when they look at the universe, Webb explained. This is the level on which the real war is being fought. Throughout the cosmic web, dark spots were spreading like infection through healthy tissue. Wherever the devourers passed, the fundamental structures of reality were being edited out of existence, leaving voids that ached with the absence of being itself. But, I can see something they can't, Webb continued, his consciousness reaching across impossible distances. I can see the patterns they're following, the logic behind their assault. And, more importantly, I can see how to stop them. He turned to face the assembled group, his transformed features reflecting determination that transcended human stubbornness and achieved something approaching cosmic resolve. The devourers aren't just destroying randomly. They're following pathways through dimensional space that lead back to the original moment of creation. If they can reach that point, they can prevent the Big Bang from ever occurring. Webb's voice carried harmonics that made reality shiver around them. But, they're not the only ones who can travel those pathways. Admiral Chen felt understanding dawn like a sunrise made of pure terror and hope. You're talking about going back to the beginning. To the moment when existence itself began. I'm talking about making sure it begins correctly this time. The angels have been fighting a defensive war for 13 billion years, trying to contain the devourers within the current cosmic structure. But, containment isn't victory, it's just delayed defeat. Webb's form became more solid, more human, as if he was focusing his scattered consciousness into something recognizable. We need to go on the offensive. Oriel's massive form shivered, dimensional winds stirring the energy matrices that comprised its body. What you suggest is beyond dangerous. The pathways to the original moment are guarded by forces that predate conscious thought. Even we dare not approach the source of all sources. But, I'm not just an angel, Webb replied, his voice carrying new authority. I'm something that's never existed before. I have human unpredictability backed by cosmic power. I can navigate chaos in ways that pure order cannot. Over the next several hours, Webb outlined a plan that defied every strategic doctrine in the history of warfare. Instead of meeting the devourers in conventional battle, humanity would lead a strike force back through dimensional time to the moment of creation itself. There, at the instant when existence first emerged from nothingness, they would establish defenses that could not be overcome because they would become part of the fundamental structure of reality. It's insane, Dr. Vasquez said finally. You're talking about rewriting the basic laws of physics. No, Webb corrected gently. I'm talking about writing them correctly the first time. The preparations took 3 months. Working with angelic engineers who had manipulated matter and energy since before the first galaxies formed, Webb designed weapons that operated on principles no human mind could have conceived. The other Academy graduates underwent accelerated enhancement procedures that prepared them for existence outside normal spacetime. Most importantly, volunteers from across human space were selected for synthesis procedures similar to Webb's own transformation. Not all of them survived. Of the 50 humans who attempted synthesis with source energy, only 12 achieved stable integration. But those 12 emerged as beings capable of reshaping reality through focused will, each one a conductor for the cosmic forces that maintained existence itself. Admiral Chen had volunteered for the procedure despite knowing the risks. When she emerged from her own synthesis chamber, her consciousness expanded to encompass strategic thinking on a cosmic scale. She could perceive the flow of battle across galactic distances, coordinate actions that spanned millions of years, and, most importantly, understand the true scope of what they were attempting. "Are you ready for this?" Webb asked as the strike force assembled for departure. Around them, ships that existed in 17 dimensions simultaneously prepared for a journey that would take them outside the normal flow of time and space. Chen looked around at the force they had assembled. 12 synthesis-enhanced humans, each one capable of channeling energies that could ignite stars. 300 Academy graduates whose consciousness had been expanded to operate in dimensional space. 50 angelic warriors who had fought in the first war against the Devourers. And, at the center of it all, Marcus Webb, no longer quite human, no longer bound by the limitations that had defined his species for millions of years. "As ready as anyone can be for something that's never been attempted," she replied. "Let's go save existence." The fleet engaged drives that folded spacetime around them, but, instead of moving through normal dimensional space, they began traveling backward along the quantum pathways that connected all moments of history. As they journeyed toward the original instant of creation, reality became increasingly flexible around them. The laws of physics softened into guidelines, mathematics became art, and consciousness itself became a tool for reshaping the fundamental nature of being. Behind them, across 17 galaxies, the celestial host maintained desperate holding actions against devourer forces that grew stronger with each passing moment. Entire solar systems were disappearing as the enemy's advance accelerated, but their sacrifice was buying time for humanity's impossible gambit to succeed. At the moment of creation itself, where existence first emerged from perfect nothingness, Webb and his transformed companions would face their ultimate test. They would either establish defenses that could protect reality for all time, or they would fail and watch as everything that had ever been or could ever be returned to the void from which it came. But, as their ships phased through the final barriers between time and eternity, Webb felt something he had never experienced before: absolute certainty. Humanity had been chosen not because they were the strongest or the wisest, but because they alone possessed the stubborn refusal to accept that anything was truly impossible. The final battle for existence was about to begin, and, at its center stood a species that had learned to dream of better worlds and, then, make those dreams real through pure force of will. The Devourers were about to discover that chaos, properly directed, was the most powerful force in all of creation. The age of humanity's cosmic ascendance had begun.